Here are my official long-winded video on my reaction to the college football AP poll for week 12. What a crazy week. From Alabama blowing out LSU in LSU, from Georgia losing to Ole Miss at Ole Miss, to Alabama. Yeah, I already said Alabama. To Miami getting upset by Georgia Tech. I mean, I'm going to go through all of them. I'm going to go through the top 10, top 25 first, and then I'll go through my notes that I have on the side. But first off, Oregon continues to sit in that number one spot. They are the best team in college football. This is going to sound crazy to y'all, but Ohio State being at number two, I feel is a little high. I know they had a really handedly blowout win against Purdue. Purdue's not a good football team. I think there are still holes in Ohio State's team, and I'm excited to see them continue to play more and more competition. I would also say this format, this college football format that they've expanded this year, has made college football so much more fun to watch and so enjoyable because teams aren't afraid to play these top teams. Teams are now going to have to build some tough schedules. I mean, this is what college football is about. It's about playing good teams. It's about getting getting good games in November and in October. This has been a great year this year with the 12 team. But regardless, Texas sits at that number three spot after having a great win yesterday. Penn State as well sits at that fourth spot. Indiana are now 10-0. They are at that five spot after beating Michigan yesterday in a close one. Tennessee getting a big win yesterday against Mississippi State. BYU again are 10-0 or 9-0. Yeah, I think they've had their bye week. They're one of the two. They are rolling, still undefeated. Notre Dame, after taking that first loss in the first week, have been steamrolling everyone. Notre Dame is on a force, and they are a force to be reckoned with. I think they're going to be one of the most underrated teams in the college football playoffs. Alabama, Jalen Milroe looked insane yesterday. Over 100 yards passing, over 185 yards on the ground with 3 touchdowns. Outstanding from him as they beat LSU. Ole Miss gets that big upset win against Georgia as Georgia falls to the 11th spot. I think that's a nice place for them to be at. I think Georgia plays Tennessee, I think, next week or in a couple weeks, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, they play up next week. So that will be a show who stays. You know, that's going to show really what it is. Tennessee, if they lose, they will drop into that 10, 11 spot. It is what it is. Yeah, Miami. This has been a problem for months, and no one's been talking about it. I said it when they almost lost to Louisville. Their defense is historically bad. Historically bad. They couldn't cover the run at all yesterday. It was a joke, absolute joke. Miami, if they want to make this playoffs, they're going to have to show something a lot better than that because that is a debacle from them yesterday. Losing to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is awful, but this is the second year in a row that Georgia Tech has beat Miami. They have their number. They can't stop the run. Plain and simple. And how does a defense coordinator come to the game saying, "Yeah, we gotta defend the run against Georgia Tech," and then you don't do it? You just scratch everything that happened. You just get beat up in the run all game yesterday. Boise State, Ashton Jensen with 200 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns last night. Outstanding from him. He is just insane, and he is setting himself up for that debate, for that argument when it comes to the Heisman race. SMU, they get a win yesterday against. Actually, they had the week off yesterday. That's why it looks like that. But they play Boston College next week, then Virginia, then Cal. So it's their. I don't think they'll get in just based off of strength of schedule. But SMU still sits at 8-1 at that 14th spot. Texas A&M. This doesn't make sense. Texas A&M, they lose to South Carolina last 2 weeks ago. They get another. They now have 2 losses, and they sit at the 15th spot. I think that is overrated. I think SMU and Texas A&M shouldn't be that high. Army, knock yourselves out. They're undefeated. Keep them right there. Clemson as well. I don't know if they'll end up staying at that number 17 spot. They have to play South Carolina at the end of the season. But, big win yesterday against Virginia Tech. Colorado, man. Talking about resilient 7-2 team that are working their behinds off. I think this is one of the best teams in college football. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. You got a problem with it? Who cares? But yeah, I think this Colorado Buffs team is one to be reckoned with. I think the dominance that they showed yesterday in the second half is what's going to propel this team. I think every single week they are learning, they're growing, and they're developing. They're not getting worse throughout the season like some of these teams are, like Georgia look like they are. They're getting better. So I would be interested to see how low Colorado drops this year, and if they're even going to get to that 12th spot. Are they going to get into that 12th spot? It's going to be very, very close, especially with Iowa State losing yesterday. That's a big thing for their conference, and I think we're gonna watch Colorado drop more and more throughout the season. Washington State 19, Kent State 20, LSU they dropped to 21, Louisville at 22, South Carolina Gamecocks sitting at 23. That is the team that I like. I don't say it much, but they took a big win against Vanderbilt this week. Last week they beat Texas A&M. So this is two top 25 wins back to back. Can that team drop more? I hope so. I hope so. We'll have to wait and see what that looks like. With the remaining schedule of Missouri this week, Wofford, and then Clemson to end it off on the 30th. We are getting to my notes now. Miami losing to Georgia Tech was awful awful defense, and they finally caught up to them. It's been a liability for a while, and I think now we're finally starting to see that. Oregon sitting at 10-0. Georgia blowout against Ole Miss. Their offense and defense looked awful. Awful. Carson Beck looked like he should have been benched, in my opinion. And we're going to have to wait and see what it looks like. How do they adjust against it for Tennessee next week? I think they could beat Tennessee. I don't think Tennessee are great. But we'll have to wait and see about that. Alabama blowing out LSU. Jalen Milroe, I talked about that. That was pretty impressive. Iowa State losing. Colorado being great. Indiana being great at 10-0. Ohio State and Texas both blowout wins. Great days for those two guys. South Carolina are now into the top 25. And BYU are still undefeated. Let me know what you think about this AP poll this week. College football is becoming so much fun this season. Let me know what your favorite team is. Let me know how you feel about this season.